you ready for this?
Gonna be fun.
You will not stand in my way.
Frostborn. Hunger. This pleases me.
I do not fear you, mortal.
Your soul shall be mine.
Don't make me laugh.
Needs a brew? Oh, I do. Feel a shredding, baby. Let the battle begin.
So hello and welcome to the 42nd episode of the Spotlight. Sorry, of the Nexus Trolls.
Spotlight.
You know what's kind of ironic? Do you know why I said that? Because I do another podcast for work, and it's called the Spotlight Podcast. Please don't look it up. It'll be bored to tears. It's a real estate podcast. But I started introing the wrong show. I'm actually surprised it's ever happened before, considering how many of these we've done. It's the 42nd episode, for those of you that aren't counting. A podcast all about Heroes of the Storm. It's part of the Trolls.gg podcasting network. I'm your host, Linus Daz Kilius. Might be replaced soon if I keep messing up like this. And I'm joined today, as always, by LiQuiuD and Mystic. How's it going, gents?
It's going, man. It's going.
Yeah.
Kind of bored. There's not that much going on in Heroes of the Storm.
Yeah, it's a slow week. No news about the mustaches. The mustache quandary of 2017. Everything's still notably silent on that part. But yeah, we didn't have a patch. We didn't have any hero reveals, hero releases, anything like that. So today, LiQuiuD's got something to say first.
We might. We definitely might. Gamescom is this week, and look for them to release something this week.
Yes.
But not right now, obviously.
Yes.
Obviously, it's not out yet.
Yes. Unfortunately, we can't peer quite into the future yet. But maybe next week we'll have a hero reveal to talk about. Maybe it'll be a mustached hero, which may explain those mustaches in the PTR a few weeks ago, which I still is driving me crazy. I'm losing sleep at night because of it. I don't know about you guys. But because we don't have a ton of news to talk about, we are going to cover a news topic, singular, because that's all we really have to talk about. Not to mention, I guess, HGC Eastern Clash is obviously a big news item, but that's going to be LiQuiuD's eSports Corner. But we are going to break down the main tanks in the game. We've got Garrosh come in. There's a lot of discussion about whether or not he can tank, if he could fill that role. We're going to talk about tanks in general, and specifically Cavalier Guest, several months ago, maybe over a year ago now, created a document that got, was pretty well received by pros and streamers alike, called The Art of the Tank. And I took a read over that, and we're going to now analyze some of the stuff that he talks about there and apply it to our knowledge of a lot of the main tanks in the game. LiQuiuD, as a main tank player, has curated the list. There may be some argument as to who can tank and who can't tank. I'm sure Mystic may have some arguments. I think he was a little bit questioning his Chen pick there. But we'll go over all that in a segment, which we'll do after LiQuiuD's Esports Corner. And then we're going to have a Dr. Daz's Science Lab, as per a listener request, actually, and Mystic's Shakedown. Hopefully it won't get bumped this week. I have a funny feeling it won't, but you know what? We always say that, and then we end up going like almost 2 hours. So.
No, this is going to be. So I have committed to understanding that tonight will be both the fastest episodes we've ever done for both the Nexus Trolls and Troll and HGC, because there's just not a lot to go over this week. There's just not.
I kind of want to prove you wrong, but you're kind of in control of a lot of the segments today. So
Right?
I can make Dr. Daz's Science Lab go really long.
I'm not sure you can. I've seen that question.
I know, it's a pretty short one. As a lot shorter than some of them have been in the past, but we'll see how it goes. So anyhow, if you are a fan of the show and you're looking to support us, you can do so over at patreon.com/trollsgg. We thank all of our patrons, and the show's always going to be free, but if you're looking for a way to support us, you can always do so there. And as per usual, LiQuiuD's got something to say. And, that worked out well, because as per usual, you usually do have something to say, right?
Yeah, that rolled in nicely. Every penny or more that you give us, whether it's by Patreon or cheering us or subbing to us on Twitch, we're using that money to buy swag to give away to you guys at BlizzCon. So keep that in mind. Like we want to bring a lot of swag. We need the money to do that.
And we're placing our orders for that, I believe, on Friday. Myself and LiQuiuD have a little meeting set up to order some t-shirts and order some fancy schmancy pinhole sunglasses, which should be pretty cool too. We'll bring all that stuff to BlizzCon. So definitely, if you're a listener of the show, if you're a patron, for sure, hit us up. We'll make sure we get a pair of sunglasses and potentially a t-shirt in your hands. So Troll of the Week this week. We got an interesting one. Giggle Schmack, who shouted out to us on Twitter saying, hey, you know what? LiQuiUD and Stixa basically convinced me I'm going to try casting this week in Chair League for the first time. So Giggle Schmack had his first Chair League cast on Tuesday. I haven't checked it out yet, but I'm planning on going to check out his VOD on that to see how it went. But it's pretty amazing just to see that someone said, hey, you know what? I'm going to give this a shot. And I mean, LiQuiUD did that at one point, right? Mystic did it at 1.2 with his casting career, and same with Stixa. And it's nice to see other people as well join into the casting community as well. And it's even cooler too that like we were somehow involved in that too.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that was pretty awesome.
Yep, and as LiQuiUD and Sticks were saying, I believe that Giggle Schmack reached out to the Chair League caster channel in Discord, and I saw him asking some questions there. And that's definitely the way to go about it, and got a lot of receptive help from what I saw to get set up. And hopefully, Giggle Schmack, your stream went well, and hopefully you're going to keep at it because having more casters in the community is always a great thing.
And the other thing I would add is if anybody out there is interested, join the Chair League Discord. Say, hey, can someone mark me as a caster? And usually me or one Mega Man fan or sometimes Cavalier Guest will mark you as a caster, which gives you access to the caster channel so you can ask all those questions and say, hey, I really want to start doing this. Like everybody will answer your questions and absolutely do it. It's a good time.
Yeah, in terms of barriers to entry, like that shouldn't be one for anyone. Like there's such an accepting community of casters in Chair League. You're going to get the help. If you're concerned about, some sort of like technology bumps and stuff, people seem to be very willing to help in that channel. I think most of it's just, getting off your chair or maybe sitting in your chair and
sitting in your chair and doing it, right? Like you literally just need a microphone and a Twitch account.
Yeah, and like Stixa said too, he used like literally the one that was attached to his headset, which I believe were like earbuds too. So it doesn't even have to be like super high quality.
No, as long as you can talk, that's it.
Yeah.
That and Twitch, right? That's all you need. I know, like, so I shared my shopping list with you, Daz, and you're gonna look at it after the show. Like, you can ramp your production quality up as high as you want to and spend as much as you want to spend, but you legitimately only need a microphone and a Twitch account to do, and obviously Heroes of the Storm. To do it. So
just be careful because it does get addictive and you'll slowly be building on stream decks and pop filters, nicer mics, nicer headsets, green screens. You can get expensive quickly once you start wanting to, but you don't have to is the big thing. And a lot of these things are incremental in terms of production quality. But if it's something you're into, it's like hobby, you don't mind sinking some money into it, you definitely can do that as well. So congrats, Giggle Schmack, on being our troll of the week, and awesome job, bud, going into casting and giving it a shot. Okay, so we've got some news, a very limited amount of news, but news nevertheless.
Someday, this will make a great story.
And LiQuiUD kind of spoiled it.
I was going to apologize, man.
We've got one bullet point, and LiQuiUD jumped the gun and talked about it in our intro. Thanks, LiQuiUD.
I didn't notice. I'm sorry. I didn't notice.
Gamescom is this weekend, and I believe last year at Gamescom was when Warhead Junction and Brax's Holdout were revealed. I could be totally wrong on that, but anyhow, we're likely going to get something from Gamescom, given the time frame of Garrosh being out for now, a couple weeks, I guess. We're likely going to get a hero reveal. At least that's what we expect. Mystic, do you think it's going to be a hero reveal, or do you think there's anything else we might be seeing at Gamescom?
Well, it's most likely going to be a hero reveal, and as much as I wanted to be Kel'Thuzad, I think they might save that for BlizzCon.
Hashtag free Hogger.
Hogger.
Hogger needs to be a thing. Like, 100% we need Hogger.
Little story about Hogger. He was my first legendary card in Hearthstone.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
He's a horrible card in Hearthstone.
It doesn't matter.
I put him in
Hogger.
Every deck. As soon as I got him, I put him in every deck I had.
That dude, so the first time I played WoW, like way back in vanilla, that dude killed me so many times it wasn't even funny. So, yeah. Hogger's a thing, and it should be represented in the Nexus.
Well, he's horrible in Hearthstone. I haven't played Hearthstone in a while. I doubt that he's into the meta at all, but I guess you never know with new mechanics and such. All right, so like I said, it's a pretty quiet week. That's all we really had to talk about. But, it wasn't that quiet because there's some stuff going on HGC side. So I guess that means it's time for LiQuiUD's eSports Corner.
Hey, yo, how you doing?
It's time for LiQuiuD's eSports Corner. That's right. And you're gonna want to stick around for this.
I resisted the temptation to mouth the words this time.
Dude, I wanted to, but I can't. Like, for some reason, the system sound stopped working, so I can't hear it.
Oh.
But that's okay. We don't have to worry about it because I can take a cue. All right. So I'm not going to go into a whole ton because, honestly, there's not a whole ton to go over. And I got to save something for Troll and HGC. So I'm going to hit, like, if you were under a bridge and you missed the Eastern Clash, the Eastern Clash did just finish. And I'm getting feedback. Do you have the Twitch channel unmuted, Daz? That's really weird.
It is unmuted. Are you okay, Mystic? Are we having some technical difficulties? I'm actually going to have to go back and modify this. Is it still okay there, LiQuiuD, or are you having problems?
No, I think it's good now. I think it's... Nope, it's still there. Weird. All right, we'll just... I can push through. All right, so Eastern Clash just happened. For those of you that like your sleep, you had to get up at 1 a.m. Eastern, Friday, Saturday, Sunday to see all the games. For the first major event that Blizzard has had, I did not do that. I did catch the 1 through 5 a.m. games on Saturday only because I was working. But I slept the rest of the time and just got up and watched VODs. The games were interesting. It was clearly the Korea show. Number 1 ended up being L5. They won the whole thing, which is surely a disappointment to Bacon. Number 2 being MVP Black. I'm, again, sure Bacon was completely thrown off and surprised by that. Can't wait to talk to him about that today on Troll and HGC. Number 3, Tempest. So the top 3 teams from Korea ended up being the top 3 teams in Eastern Clash. Like, just... There was no messing around. It was just like, boom. And Tempest was like playing out of their minds. They actually made it to the winners final, then went down to the losers final to lose to MVP Black, setting up the L5 MVP Black grand final. So I think it's interesting. Korea, one of the notes I saw on Reddit today or yesterday was Korea is just flat. Like, the top tier talent is flat. Those 3 teams really could go back and forth. They're interchangeable. Actually happen to agree about that. I thought Tempest was going to win it all, actually. I had them picked to win it all. They were looking really good regular season going into the Eastern Clash, but ended up finishing 3rd. And then CE from China was number 4. So nothing really surprising. It was clearly going to be Korea. I thought CE would do a little better, but I thought Tempest would win it all. It was a clash. It was a good clash.
What team had visa issues?
That was E-Star. Yeah.
Where do you think they would have slotted in here?
So E-Star, I think E-Star is about the same as CE. They're very close skill level wise. I don't feel like I'm trying to remember who replaced them, and for some reason I'm totally going blank. I think it was Soul Torturers got in to replace E-Star. Yes, Soul Torturers got kind of stomped a little bit, which was to be expected. But I think E-Star could have done maybe better than CE did. The problem really was in the matchup, right? So, like, in the second round where CE struggled, I think E-Star could have done better. But in the first round, I think they both would have lost. And it's weird. Like, they match up differently. And because they play each other all the time, like, China versus China does one thing, but China versus Korea is a completely different matchup. So it's kind of bizarre that way. So weird things could happen, but I think they probably would have still gotten knocked out by L5 and had to fight their way through the losers bracket.
How would Europe fare against Korea these days?
So that's actually a great question, and that's actually like one of our topics we're covering tonight on Troll and HGC. Because what I want to know, so the real question that I want answered, and I look forward to hearing Bacon's thoughts on this. Can Korea beat Fnatic? It's not can Fnatic beat Korea. It's can Korea beat Fnatic at this point. Like, just looking at raw stats like KDAs, I mean, like, nobody's ever going to touch Breeze's KDA from Western Clash. Like, it's just not going to happen. I think it's physically impossible for anybody to touch that. And for those of you that don't remember or didn't listen last week, Breeze had a 118 KDA
And KDA for uneducated listeners.
All right.
Or I shouldn't call them
deaths,
uneducated.
assists. It's not uneducated. It's people that don't follow it as
Yeah.
much, right? So kills, deaths, and assists. The dude was alive for 99.8% of the time. He only died one time. To give you a little perspective, so that's Breeze, 118 KDA. We go over to Korea, right? The top KDA was from an L5 player, 13.2.
Which is probably pretty good.
13.2 is actually really good when you consider that the second place person, again, on Fnatic was 29.5. But like Fnatic, right? So like Fnatic raffle stomped their way through the Western Clash. Like there was no, like they looked like they were on a whole other playing field than everybody else. So they should have, as a whole, had this really great high KDA, which they did. 13.2 is actually a well-respected KDA. Like we wouldn't be having this conversation if not for Fnatic's utter dominance at the Western Clash. Now the question of whether they can translate that into facing the Korean teams at BlizzCon, that's a good question. That is why I look forward to parking myself in front of the HGC stage at BlizzCon and watching all of those games.
I don't follow EU HGC that much. Is Fnatic like super dominant that all the other teams in Europe are not doing so hot against them?
For the most part, Fnatic wins everything.
This seems to be more recent though, right? Like the past 6 months?
Since mid-season brawl, yeah. So like really going into mid-season brawl, they were starting to hit their stride. Then at mid-season brawl, they kind of dominated everybody, right? Fnatic went through and won and looked really good doing so. And you know, that's when you got Korea saying, well, we didn't really care, blah, blah, blah. You know, the money's not there for the top tier teams. All that stuff came out, right? So, but EU as a whole, so I'm pulling it up right now just for giggles, just so I can make sure I'm not saying anything completely crazy. They're 6-1 right now in this phase. Then the rest of the teams 4-3. Like the next 4 teams are all 4-3. So like Fnatic just is.
So
right?
just to prove that I listened to Troll and HGC. Now I can actually talk knowledge about some of this stuff. So I know that Bakery is now the shot caller for Dignitas, right? And because they made that change, they took it a bit of an expected drop as they got used to it, and they thought that that's going to be a long-term benefit for the team, right? So are they starting to see that? Because I mean, Dignitas wasn't even in the Clash.
Right. So that's a good question. So first, I would point out that even at mid-season brawl, Dignitas finished second. L5 finished third, right? So you already had EU beating everybody else at mid-season brawl, right? But then if you were to look at what was happening for Dig the last couple of weeks, they were actually on an upswing, right? They were starting to fix it. So if you look at Team Dignitas' schedule, I'm trying to see if I can pull that up here. Yes. So if you look at Dignitas' schedule, right? They won 3-0 against Trick. Trick did really well. So like that was the last week before the breaks of the clashes, right? So Team Dignitas was on that. All right, we've gelled together. We've fixed this kind of position swap that we had. Now we're gonna start winning. The week before that, they lost 3-0 to Fnatic. But again, Fnatic is in like perfect form right now. So it's a weird like, how do you deal with this? If you go all the way back to like week 3, they beat Playing Ducks, but Playing Ducks is a weaker team. The same way that Zealots is a weaker team. They barely lost to Team Expert. It was 2-3, and they barely beat Team Good Guys. That was 3-2, and they got spanked by LiQuid all the way back in week 1. So if you if you were to plot their wins and losses and look at what's happening, they're on the upswing now. What'll be interesting to see what happens is in this next phase, right? So starting next Saturday, not this Saturday, because this Saturday is a bye week. We go into Dignitas against Playing Ducks. That should be a win for them. But then Saturday, August 26th, is the game that's going to tell us something, because that's going to be Dig versus Fnatic. So mark your calendars now. If you are interested in EU and the EU scene at all, because let's be honest, if we can ignore the NA LOL memes that are going right now, right? Like, honestly, Fnatic is the best chance for a Western team to beat an Eastern team. 100%, like that's the way it is. NA might take a game off of a Eastern team. NA might even maybe Tempo Storm or Roll20 or No Tomorrow or any of those guys. Maybe they're playing out of their minds and they even take a series. But to really advance, like, it's not. I love NA. NA is my home. They're not going to make it. I'm sorry. Like, they're just not. So Fnatic right now looks to be the best chance of number one of like a Western team beating an Eastern team. Saturday, August 26th, noon Eastern, Dignitas versus Fnatic. That's going to set the stage for the rest of part 2.
So how is the road to BlizzCon from here on out? Like, how does a team get into BlizzCon? I'm sure that's a question a lot of people have, myself included. Because to be honest with you, like, HGC's taken big strides this year, but it's still not super intuitive. I feel like going forward to be like, okay, well, like, how do you win it all, right? Like, you've got you got the standings and everything, but then you got these brawls in between, and like, it's kind of unclear who's got a chance to get to BlizzCon and like what you have to do to get to BlizzCon. Do the standings matter? Like, is there a tournament at the end? Exactly, how does it work?
Yes. So it's going to be very similar to what we saw leading it up to mid-season brawl. So top 2 teams from the major regions go through automatically. So there's 5 weeks of regular season play again, just like we had in part 1, just like we had in both parts of phase 1, right? Where you have week 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. That's going to set you up. Top 2 teams go through to BlizzCon. The 3rd through 6th place team then play in a stepladder format, just like we had at Midseason Brawl. Now, the big difference is, if I remember correctly, at Midseason Brawl, only the number 1 seed got in, and then 2 through 6 had to play in that stepladder. At BlizzCon, they're sending the top 3 teams from the major regions, so only so 3 through 6 play in that stepladder format. The thinking being, well, if you're the number 3 team, you only have to play 1 game. You only have to be the winner that comes out of that stepladder 4, 5, and 6, and then if you beat them, you're in, and if you lose to them, well, the better team won, right? So we get that normal playoff schedule, just like we did at Midseason Brawl. Then we get the thing I'm most excited about pre-BlizzCon, and that is another Crucible. So the week after we do the playoffs, we go into another Crucible again, right? Then there's 2 bye weeks, and then we're at BlizzCon, baby. So very, very similar. Now, the catch is BlizzCon HGC Finals actually start October 25th, the week before BlizzCon, because they're going to do some group play to knock some teams out so that when you get to BlizzCon, it's only going to be, like the top 6 or top 8 teams, right? And because you got to condense it into those 3 days, 2 days? Let's see, where is it? I think it's 2 days, 3rd and 4th. So
they really need to add more days to that convention. But
yes,
I'm sure. Like, I feel like it's getting close to the tipping point that it's going to happen. Especially that they've even expanded the number of people they're bringing to BlizzCon. Not to mention all their properties, all the different tournaments and everything they have to. And
they're working on like Blizzard announced they were working on like 8 different properties that are all being incubated right now. So it's like,
Warcraft
BlizzCon's
4.
only so big, man. You gotta expand.
StarCraft 3, right?
Right.
Oh, give me that.
I know. We all have our fingers crossed for different things. LiQuiD's just like more hero stuff. That's all he wants.
Right. I'm like, I like my foot. So to be fair, I am playing another non-Blizzard game in what little bit of spare time I have had that doesn't require quite the attention that Heroes has, but Heroes is still my first love. So. And HGC. I'm like, this is my weekend to catch up on sleep. I'm looking forward to it. So.
Okay, so you want to talk some tanks, guys?
Yeah, let's talk some tanks.
Okay, so as I mentioned off the top of the show, Cavalier Guest, quite a while ago, I wish I had a date on it, I believe it was about a year ago, wrote an article, it's in a Google Doc form, and we've got the link in the show notes, called The Art of the Tank. We've called Cavalier Guest on the show when he came on. We called him the Sun Tzu of Heroes of the Storm. And it's kind of funny. He said he'd never heard that before. Like, anyone referred to him this app. I'm like, it's kind of strange because he wrote something called The Art of the Tank. And I think The Art of War was written by Sun Tzu. And The Art of the Tank is written by Cavalier Guest. And you got to think that he at least, took that a little bit from The Art of War. But anyhow, it's a very well-respected document. Pros have actually mentioned it quite often. Actually, I've seen like them bring it up, and it goes over in very deep detail. It's about 12 pages. The different things that are required of a tank. We're not talking warriors here. We're talking tanks. So those frontline heroes that can actually tank for a team. he talks about the four requirements of a tank, and he goes over a lot of the heroes and talks about where they're strong and where they're weak. Obviously, of these four characteristics of a tank, some do it better than others. If one tank did all of these better than everybody else, that'd be the OP tank, right? You got to have give and takes in the game to have a balanced tank. So the four things that any tank should be looking at when you're making your decision about picking a tank, say in a drafting environment, are these. Engaging for your team. So this applies to both team fights and ganking. You want to make sure that you can get in there and start up the team fight. Peeling for your team is the next important thing. If your team's on the run, or at least the other team's engaging on your squishies, you want to make sure you can somehow have something in your kit that can help defend them. Pulling the heroes back, or maybe picking them up and throwing them like Garrosh does away. The other thing that a lot of people maybe don't think about, because those two are probably pretty obvious when we're talking about tanks, the third point is being a mobile ward. Now, what that means is that you need to use yourself to be able to determine the location of the other team. That can be checking bushes safely, or somehow being able to scout out, like you're the one who pokes your head in to see if they're doing the boss type thing, right? You got to be able to make sure you can get in there and somehow get out, not die if you do that face check. Obviously, we know if you're Kael'thas and if you face check a bush, you're probably going to die. He wouldn't be very good as a mobile ward. However, you get someone tanky
or Malfurion
that has some sort of escape if they get into trouble, and they maybe have enough health to get through any sort of everyone using their cooldowns on him. That would be a good mobile ward. And finally, being a damage sponge. This is different than having a lot of health, because there's different ways to soak damage. You can use shields, you can have armor, pretty much anything that, or even just self regen can help as well there. So those are the four things we're going to be looking at. I mean, there's other obviously nuanced things I'm sure that will come up along here, and there's a lot of situational bits as well, whereas someone might be a good damage sponge in certain situations, but not in others, depending on the opposing team's team comp. Okay, so we're going to go over a bunch of tanks. We'll see how this goes. We've got a list here that LiQuid cultivated for us. So LiQuid, do you want to start off the conversation here with the first tank on the list?
Sure. Okay, so some of these are not in a super particular order. I love when you swap out, because I'm like, wait, where'd my notes go? Some of these are in a super particular order, but I feel like the top, let's say 6 are like kind of standard, beefy, I can do everything tanks, right? So I'm going to just kind of lump them together momentarily, and then we can discuss them separately. But those top 6 are Stitches, Muradin, Diablo, ETC, Anub'arak, and Johanna. So that's like these easily fulfill the standard tank role in 99% of the ways that Cavalier Guest kind of has them broken out. Right?
Yeah. And there's obviously a lot of situational bits where other tanks can fulfill those roles.
Yes.
So do you want to start going through?
Yeah. So yeah, we can do that. So Stitches, I like Stitches. Stitches post 20 is like nigh unkillable. Especially if you build him tanky. If you go the slam build, he's a little bit easier to kill, but he's still pretty tanky. But Stitches is great for comboing. Stitches can his peel is a little weak in that I would say his peel is his weakest point. Only because his only peel is to yank somebody off of you or yank you away from them, right? And if he's yanking you away from people that are attacking you, he's probably not damage sponging as much as he needs to, right? Could be, right? He could be damage sponging the ranged and peel like a Greymane that's gone melee on you off, that type of thing. But, Stitches has found a home in a lot of metas right now. He's actually one of the more highly used tanks currently. I say that, and I'm like frantically pulling up hot slogs just to make sure I'm not so crazy. So I really like Stitches as a tank. His engage is great if you consider his hook to be the engage. His peel's okay, like I mentioned. He can face check anything and pretty much survive, especially post 4-7. I think 7 makes it a little easier if you're building tanky. And he can damage punch 100%, right?
So you're saying his one weakness, if you want to call it that, is likely his peel. Right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
in my mind, the best way to make up for it is taking his ultimate. I can't remember the poop ultimate. I forget the
No,
name
that's
of it.
actually the one I like. Putrid Bile.
Yeah, because that slows everybody down, lets your team get away,
Yes.
and does damage in the process, right? So
And it forces the other team to think like, do I want to stand here or do I want to walk away? Yeah. I agree.
So would you say that I guess Stitch is one of the strongest tanks in the game if he does take off a lot of those major boxes? Because like you said, like I or is he maybe just best in even like a dual tank role where someone else might be able to handle the peeling?
He works great in a dual tank role, but he also works well in a solo tank role. I played him both, and he works well both places. I am just changing my stats real quick so I can make this a little bit better because I didn't like his. So his win rate is right under 50%, which tends to bring you into the, well, he's not great area. But having said that, he's also played. He has the most games played, so at just under 50%, 49.5. You know, I feel like that's a healthy spot to be in.
That can be misleading too, because there's always the coordinated versus uncoordinated environment. And I feel like
Right.
the hooks, you can take advantage of those if you
yes.
have a coordinated team.
So the one thing I'll say is I'm only looking at Master Diamond right now in Hero League, right? Because I specifically wanted to say, okay, at a higher level of play, where does this tank fit? At a lower level of play, it gets harder, right? If you don't have a team that's going to follow up on the hook, Stitches is the wrong tank for you, 100%. I've played him in comps where it's like, there's no follow-up on the hook. And it's like, what do we do now? I just hooked him. This is a perfect kill target. There's no follow-up, and he walks away, right? Like, you can hook. Well, yeah, but even that's only going to do so much if you're on, like, Cursed Hollow, right? I mean, then what? Okay, I gorged you, and I'm running as fast as my little fat legs can carry you. But if I still don't have follow-up and I can't get to a gate to, like, lock you in to get tower damage on you, it's not going to matter. So go ahead.
Let's see. How about this? Well, let's say we took the hook away from Stitches. Would he have a place there?
No.
I know that's a big part of his kit, obviously. But
if you took the hook away from Stitches, Stitches becomes a
because he's got a lot of health.
He becomes a damage sponge, but he doesn't have the peel and he doesn't have the engage anymore. And you're taking away two of the four tenets of making a good tank, right? So now what? Now you're in, sure, you can use him, but he moves down the list into the second set that we'll go over when we get down there. So the hook and the hook follow-up is critical to Stitches being in a high position. If you don't have those two things, Stitches is not the tank for you.
Hey, well, who's the next tank on the list?
All right, so I got Muradin up next. And again, these six are not really. I didn't go. I really only separated these into. These are the tanks that I think like are strong solo tanks. These are the niche solo picks, and then can solo pick if you know what you're doing. So Muradin is like. I don't know what happened. Muradin's still god tier, but nobody plays him because other tanks have been buffed up so highly. Muradin is like unkillable from the beginning, which is why I don't understand. Like, you step out of battle for 3 seconds and you heal, and then you step back into battle. Like, hello, like it's like the easiest thing to heal. He's got his ultimate is like pretty much always avatar. You will see some Playmaker come out sometimes, but usually it's Avatar. So which helps with the I can't be killed, along with healing static at 13, like post 13 in a group. Like, forget it, you're not killing that Muradin, or it, there's a chance, but it's a slim chance, right? He definitely can engage either with leap or just Stormbolt or just walk up and start whacking somebody and stun them a couple of times, right? Like, there's a lot of ways, right? You can use Stormbolt. After you've walked up to him, you can Stormbolt in, start whacking them, then leap over them to body block. And like, his kit really lends itself to all aspects of the tanking. He can engage, he can peel, he can ward, and he can sponge.
So where's his weakness then?
He's not as strong damage-wise as the other tanks.
He can be, though. Give him the
yes,
axe.
But when you build him that way, then he's not as survivable. So to really build him into that beefy, I can take anything on, sometimes you can't afford to go talents like Give Him the Axe, Haymaker, because Haymaker definitely leads to that, right? But if you can't go Haymaker because you need Haymaker for something else, then you're then you're in a weird spot. So because his damage is lower than the other tanks, that's why you see him played less, especially now when you consider that most teams come out with double support, right? So if you're facing a double support tank, every bit of damage you can, or a double support comp, every bit of damage counts at that point. And Muradin just does not have the damage to really fit in there.
One little note about Muradin's damage sponginess too. One of the great things about him, as someone who has somehow fallen into a healer main role recently, it's nice because you don't have to put a lot of resources into him necessarily. If you're in a team fight and he's in trouble, is usually the only time I heal him, because I know that if it's just a little skirmish, he gets low, he jumps out, then he'll self-heal with his second wind trait. If he's just out of battle, if you don't know if he's out of battle for a few seconds without taking damage, he starts healing up extraordinarily fast, which is nice because then he can soak a lot of damage, get out, and then heal back up to full. Meanwhile, the other team possibly had to waste a lot of resources healing themselves back up from that recent skirmish. Next thing you know, you've soaked a lot of damage. Muradin's doing his job properly.
Yes.
Okay, next one.
So Diablo is my boy. Probably my second favorite tank, or favorite depending on how nerfed the other one is. And I gotta be obvious. I gotta be obvious. Honest. I gotta be honest.
Yeah.
Right. I was like, honest and Diablo at the same time didn't work. I gotta be honest. I was like super bummed with the reworked Diablo until I've gotten used to it, and now I actually enjoy it a little bit more than I used to enjoy old pre-reworked Diablo. But Diablo kind of is another one of those who is interesting. Diablo can hit all four of those, but only post about 60 souls. If you try to mobile ward or damage sponge before you hit 60 souls, unless it's really early game because people haven't ramped all the way up to like really do damage yet, you're gonna die. So like the biggest problem I have with Diablo is getting to 100 souls and then finally like you're nigh unkillable. They kill you and you're up right away, which is great, but you have no souls, so you can't like it post 16 when you have no souls. Like engaging on Diablo is asking to die again.
Yeah, for me, in order to mobile ward properly, you have to be able to take that initial hit and get away. And I guess Diablo has that one issue. Getting away is not that easy. I mean, I see you flip someone over your head if they were in that bush and charge them to get some distance from the rest of the team. But he kind of lacks that very easy jump that Muradin has, because Muradin can just jump in any direction. There's no conditionals on it.
So that's an interesting point, and I feel like either me and Mystic used to have that debate all the time, or me and Shiz. And I would point out, dude, there's almost always minions near you to charge. And especially post 4 or 7, I can't remember which one it is. I think it's 4, where you can increase your shadow charge distance. That minion doesn't have to be that close at that point, and all of a sudden you've escaped. You are correct, right? His level of escape is not as high as Muradin or a noob or ETC or Johanna, but it's definitely the same level or better than Stitches.
You'll definitely have a better game sense of where those minions are at all times playing Diablo.
Well, you have to, right? Like, not only so you can escape, but also because you constantly have to soak souls until you're at 100. When I subbed for you guys, I died, and I was like, all right, I have to go soak souls. And even Antinok, when he was casting, is like, oh yeah, you can see Diablo's out farming souls, because later in the game you need the souls or you're not survivable. It's like, yeah, guys, I want to help you engage. I'll throw out my APOC, but you don't want me there in the fight because I'm a liability, because I literally have 20 souls right now. And 20 souls at 16 is a dead Diablo. Like, they're just like, we're going to kill this guy.
And there's the first of our conditional answers too, because Diablo changes very drastically depending on the number of souls he has in terms of health regen as well as armor.
That's why you really need to get post 60 souls to really be like sturdy. You can start getting crazy at 40, especially if it's 40 early game. But after level 16, around 40, it can be sketchy. Depends on your healers. But 60 is about the right time to like, all right, boys, I'm going in. Cover me. Hold my beer.
So what's the next tank on the list here?
All right, so my next tank is my all-time favorite, and I'm so excited because he's been coming back both at the Western Clash and the Eastern Clash, telling people it's okay. I think we even talked about it on this. I think it was this show, right, where we talked about whether or not ETC could and should be played. I feel like it was the Nexus Trolls. Didn't we get that question? Or was that a?
Oh yeah. So
Yeah,
it was a
we
listener question.
did.
Yes.
We did.
Okay, good. So ETC, man, the cow is back, especially with that sick new L800 skin. I can't wait. I move my head that way. I kind of got it behind me right there. Super excited. In fact, I went and crafted all of them immediately. I bought them. My wife's like, why did we just send Blizzard $40? I'm like, I needed gems. I had to buy some skins. So she shook her head at me, but that's okay. ETC is back, baby.
I think everyone just collectively shook their head at you, LiQuiuD, not just your wife.
Probably. But all right, so ETC's back. He's still a little weaker than he used to be, but he's still strong enough that he fits into the current meta. So I'm excited about that. He has an engage, right? Obviously, he can power slide in. He has appeal, both power slide and oh my god, why am I going blank on his W?
The little speaker pushback thing.
Yeah, the speaker pushback thing. I'm totally going blank on what it's called. Oh my god. I love
He's been out of the meta too long.
Right? I'm like,
Was it face melt?
Yes, face melt. Thank you, dude. So he's definitely got engage and peel, right? He can mobile ward because he can survive, and he can again slide away if he needs to. He can go over terrain, which a lot of the not shadows, but you know what I'm talking about. The vents are right next to terrain, so you can slide through terrain to get away easier and make your escape more readily available. Especially if you do a face mount first and then slide out, push them all back, slide out the opposite way, lots of room. He's a little bit weaker in the damage sponge only because his health was reduced so much, but because of the way Blizzard reworked his trait, no longer giving, attack speed to the rest of the people on his team, which is still a huge nerf, and I hate you, Blizzard. I really love Blizzard, but God, I hate that change. But he gets armor now, so it's helpful in the damage sponge, right? You just sit there and you rotate through your skills and you heal yourself, and you just kind of rock through it. So ETC meets all of the criteria, is a strong solo tank, and has I think one other criteria we should talk about. Out of the ones that we've discussed so far, Stitches is okay with either ultimate. Muradin really is primarily the avatar. Diablo is primarily the APOC unless you're just fooling around and you like Lava Breath, but ETC can legitimately go either ultimate depending on the team you're facing. If you're not worried about stuns, man, Mosh Pit can change lives. And we just saw a sick 5-man Mosh Pit in the grand finals. So like Mosh Pit is still a thing. And then turning him into a global character with Stage Dive, but not just a global character, because if you also buff Stage Dive at 20, like you can sit there and make that part of your damage rotation if you wanted to, and just repeatedly stage dive on teams, especially like Vikings teams. So because you can reduce the cooldown pretty low. I think it's like 10 seconds if you hit all of the other team, and you can just sit there and like keep popping stage dive, which is kind of cool. So I feel like he's probably the best all around tank, or not the best because I still wish his health pool was a little hard, but he's like a super strong all around tank right now.
So is that, I guess, why he was super strong and OP previously, and then why he fell out of the meta base kind of creeping back in is because his engage in peeling is so strong.
Yeah.
And I guess Blizzard had to give him a weakness, and they gave him the damage sponge weakness there, in terms of, like make him a little bit squishier. But like people are getting around that now. Is that why he's coming back into the meta?
I think if you look, there's a lot of double support, and so it's a little easier to keep him alive with the double support. I think, and I don't necessarily think Blizzard tried to reduce, they didn't make him a weaker damage sponge. What they did is they said, okay, well, now that your trait is generating armor for you, you get a lower baseline health. You get a lower heal.
You're
right?
being an apologist for ETC now.
No. I'm just saying, like Blizzard's design, if you look at the design decisions they've made recently with all of their heroes, when they add armor, they reduce the health and they reduce the self-healing you can do, right? I still disagree with Mystic. It's not a fair trade everywhere they do it. ETC is a great example of it. They went too far with his health for the amount of armor and how often he has armor for that to be an equitable trade. But people are learning to work around that, and people are learning to deal, like, double support is a thing now. So you get, it's a little easier to get away with his heal and his health being set up the way that it is now.
There's not as much damage flying around.
Right. So,
Okay. Well, who's next on the list?
So Anubarak is next on the list, and Anubarak until recently was like must pick or bust. Like legitimately, a patch and a half ago it was like if you don't first pick Anubarak, you've lost. Maybe it was 2 patches ago. He's still strong. He still meets the criteria. He can engage with his burrow. He can peel with his burrow or with his spike strip. Not spike strip, but his spikes. Yeah. He has his self shield, so he can mobile ward. He can get in. He can get out quickly. He can damage sponge again. His self shield and his beetles that he spawns will both soak damage. Right. So he meets all of the criteria. Both of his ultimates are relatively okay. I don't want to Locust Swarm is good, but it's not as good as I'm going to take someone out of the fight for X seconds, right? So Cocoon gets picked all the time right now still. And that's not to say that Locust Swarm is bad, but Cocoon is just so much better. And so I still like Anubarak. I still see him as a strong tank. Like Ogre just said, he suffered from ETC love and got a health nerf. And he did. He got a health nerf, and now it's a little easier to dodge or pre-cleanse a Cocoon. But as a support main, Daz, how easy is it to pre-cleanse a Cocoon?
Oh, nigh impossible. I still never see the damn thing.
Oh, really? You don't? It's
see the
quick.
beggar?
It's still quick. It's still fast,
Yeah,
right?
it's not something I can catch, at least at my skill level. So Mystic, Anubarak, I think there should be a little asterisk next to damage sponge. How would you counter Anubarak if you were trying to counter him and make him less damage spongy?
If I were trying to counter Anubarak,
I'm teeing you up for this one.
well, it's kind of difficult because he does have a shield, right? Which is a shield. It blocks all types of damage. And everybody in the game has abilities that do damage, so his spell armor is effective versus anything. Honestly, I'd like to say the best way to counter Anubarak is punish him when he goes in with his burrow charge.
Just
Like
a
if
little
he whiffs it or
clarification, though,
something?
it's only spell armor, right?
Yeah, it's only spell armor.
The auto attacking like Val is not enough though. It's not.
Yeah,
like,
it's not.
It's just not right. Like
That's where I was kind of going with that. I was going to say go heavier on the AA, but you guys are saying that's still enough. You can still soak that up.
yep.
Yeah, because he has that shield, right? If he has that shield where he can just throw out some CC, so then the auto attacker, because most of their damage is auto attacks, right? They can't just throw a spell and then just it's done. They have to sit there and auto attack, which makes it an easy target for the stun, the Q. And then if that's not enough, like you auto attacking Anubarak, he has his W, which is a shield, blocks all damage, and then that blocks some of the damage. That allows him to either burrow out or like back up and reposition. So,
Well,
yeah,
I just ate my words. I was trying to tee you up for an answer that I thought was the correct answer, and it turns out I was wrong. So Anubarak can damage, because I've always thought of him as not only anti-mage, but the one that can soak up a lot of those first hits coming out of the mage too, like getting in front of that Leeming orb, right, and trying to mitigate the damage from that.
That was the problem. Blizzard tried to tee him up that way. And
Yeah,
the
they
interesting
did.
thing is coming out of that, like before PTR was even up, right? Before anything was ready to go, and we were just reading patch nights and patch. Wow,
Patch nights.
I'm a mess tonight, man. Patch notes. When we were reading the patch notes, we're like, oh god, man, Anubarak is only going to be good into. Because I remember having this conversation with you guys. Anubarak is only going to be good into spell damage, and Johanna is only going to be good into auto attackers. And woe is me, like all the tanks are dying, blah blah blah, right? Totally not the way it went down.
Anubarak doesn't care.
Anubrak came out of that patch as like #1 tank across the board after that patch. It was just like you picked Anubrak or you went home, like period. And he was at that position for a long time. Only recently coming down to okay, some other tanks can be played relatively well. So yeah, it's just not enough.
And the next on our list, Joanna, that you just mentioned too. Ironically enough, nice segue.
Right?
She doesn't feel a ton different after, I don't know what you want to call it, Tank Gate 2017.
I like that Tank Gate 2017.
Yeah, because she was positioned as the auto attack tank, right?
She takes a little, not a lot, a little more damage from spells, right? What's up, Tetcher? What? All right. So Tetcher in chat just hit us with a very good point. CC and Focus totally will blow them up, which is absolutely 100% correct. Yes, without a doubt, that is a true statement. And most of these tanks are, right? If you can CC any of the tanks we've covered so far, you can blow any of them up. Stitch's post 20 probably the hardest because his health pool is just so incredibly large, short of Cho'Gall, which we haven't covered yet because we're going to get down there. But yes, if you have a good CC comp, you can 100% lock them down, blow them up, and then it doesn't matter, right? So it really counts on you being the initiation and you doing the engagement so that your team doesn't end up in that situation. So yes, 100%. Thank you, Tetra. That's a good comment. But Johanna, Johanna we thought was going to be weak against spells, and she takes a little bit more damage against like abilities, but it's not enough that's like busted her all the way over to the side, right? She doesn't get picked a whole lot, especially in professional play. She's only sitting at a 49.3% win rate with a really low pick rate in Master Diamond, but still strong, right? So she's still strong enough that like Tomb of the Spider Queen, like 100% Johanna works for you. Or not just Tomb of the Spider Queen, but like Infernal Shrines, still good there. Still not as good as back in her heyday when she could condemn all those skeletal defenders and like one-shot them, which was like amazing, but still strong on Infernal Shrines, right? Anything where you have a lot of rotations, Johanna is actually a really good tank because of her wave clear and how well she can synergize with something like a Li Ming or even an Asmodan, who got no love at either clash this weekend, which is fine. Asmodan's not like a pro level player, but like anything that can have an advantage to where you pull all the minions into one tight little area. So it's like two skills, right? KT, another good example. So Johanna pulls them all in. KT's like boom, and you know, one flame strike and the minions are dead. You're moving to another lane. So anywhere you're gonna run that type of rotation works great. So
I'm gonna try and tee you up again, Mystic. You ready? Hopefully this time it's gonna work. So what's Joanna's weakness then? Between like engage, peel, mobile ward, damage, spongy, like why isn't she picked higher?
She has pretty good scores on all of these things, I think, except for I'd like to say peel. So she has an engage, blessed shield, or if you're crazy, you know, the
falling sword, baby.
Yeah, falling sword.
Falling sword.
She has the ability to be a mobile ward. She is a damage sponge. But I think the reason she's not picked is because her abilities are on a long enough cooldown that I guess it's not up frequently enough. So when your team needs more peel, you can't really provide it, right? They dive, you condemn, you press your Q button, you blind them. And even if you time all those perfectly so that, you know, one CC ends and then the next CC goes and then etc., it's sometimes just not enough. Like, Illidan comes in, you use all that CC, he's blinded, and then let's just say he's a quarter HP still. Now you have no more CC to peel for your backline while, you know, he just wrecks shop, right?
Yeah, to me, Joanna seems kind of like she does pretty good in most categories, but she's not like the best. Like her engage, I feel like she's got to use her ultimate, or you can pull him in a little bit and slow him a little bit. But it's no like power slide. It's no like Murd and hard stun.
Right.
The peel, you can pull him back a bit. You can slow him a bit. You maybe throw out your ultimate if you really need to help peel, but it's no hard stun. You can't get around the person, get the body blocks like even like a Chen or something, right?
That's her biggest struggle right? Her biggest struggle is that the peel, and condemn is like supposed to be, I'm air quoting it, supposed to be like your biggest
Peel.
ability to do that, right? Your biggest peel. But the stun is so slow that unless you land a max range condemn on the person chasing your support to pull them back to you and give enough of a gap that support's probably going to escape, it's just not enough, because the blind may really, cause Valis some problem, but it's not going to be enough to cause a Li Ming problem. She's just going to orb right through that. The blind doesn't mean anything to her, right? So...
Yep. And I think blinds in general just seem to be a little bit on the lackluster side in the meta at the moment. They don't seem to be very powerful in general for what they should be. Okay, so that wraps up the major tanks. So would you call these the top tier solo tanks?
No, I would call those the most comfortable main tanks, right?
Okay.
So not
niche,
not top tier, not
situational.
Niche, just these are tanks that you're okay at any level of play going in and saying, I'm going to play this tank, except for we said with Stitches, right? You have to have a follow-up to that hook. It's not going to work if you don't have a follow-up to that hook, but anybody can go in and play this as a solo tank and they'll be safe, right? So the next set is kind of niche-ish, right? So maybe they're solo tanks, or maybe they're tanks in a different situation, whether it's a single or solo double tank type thing, or just a double warrior. It doesn't have to be. I actually am going to change the order real quick because I want to actually start with my boy Dahaka. So Dahaka right now is hands down the number one warrior pick that you see almost everywhere right now, right? Dahaka is super strong solo, or up in the solo lane. I don't mean super strong solo tank. I mean you put him off in the solo lane, he's going to soak for days, and then he's going to come in on a moment's notice, drag a target, boom, you get a kill, and you're going to move on, right? So Dahaka's in a really weird place, though, because he is capable of solo tanking, but you probably should not do so. You can. The question is, should you? So I've played games. I know friends have played games on Dahaka solo tank. It's absolutely possible, especially if you have a Karazim or a Thrall, or another kind of beefy, not quite warrior bruiser, but another kind of beefy frontliner that can stand next to you. Maybe not Thrall anymore. I don't know. I haven't seen that in a while. But something of that ilk, right? Something that can go shoulder to shoulder with you into the group. But Dahaka is 100% capable of solo tanking, just probably not the best idea. But he has an engage. Right? If you come out of the bushes now, you've got an engage. That dude is so fast, it's not even funny anymore. Race car Dahaka is 100% a thing. You have the peel with the tongue. You have the peel with his ultimate, his isolation. If that's what you go instead of taking adaptation, it's a good. Dahaka is a good example of where both ultimates actually really make a lot of sense, depending on what you're playing. You can mobile ward because the bushes are your friends. And you can damage choke if you go, if you have your 50 essence, and you have your ultimate if you go adaptation. You can absolutely damage choke with that. And you can burrow while you're, they wasted a skill shot on me that I or not burrowed. What is it? It's burrow when you just go in the ground, not when you move, right? Yeah. So you can burrow, have them waste a skill shot, pop back out, or, avoid a stun or whatever. So he fits the criteria of a solo tank, but it's a struggle to solo tank with him because his true what's the word I'm looking for? His true majesty shines when he's not actually playing a solo tank, but playing an off tank or a solo laner.
And I think we should clarify too, because we're talking about, and I'm pretty sure Cavalier Guest talks about this in our article too. This is talking about the role of tanking. It's not talking about being a good character, because he has that X factor in the global bit and off soaking lanes and such. And we didn't even talk about Joanna's got amazing wave clear. That's another thing we might take Joanna for, right? We're talking purely about tanking and team fights.
Right.
And that is a bit different. Now, the one thing I'd like to disagree with you with LiQuid, and feel free to argue against this. I feel like Dahaka's got not the greatest peel. In general, I think, and just hear me out on this one, I think solid peel is peel that can potentially lock down or stop a few heroes. Like even like Joanna pulling a bunch in, or EDC sliding through a couple heroes at once.
Yeah.
Like the Dahaka 2, he's got like slowly trundle up to you and try and hit that, like, not the easiest skill shot in the world to hit with the tongue. And I feel like that's not the greatest peel. Like, at least like Murden, okay, you can jump over him, you can body block him, you can stun him, you can slow him down with your thunderclap. Like they've got a lot of options there for the peels.
Right.
Whereas I feel like Dahaka lacks in protecting the back line from an appealing standpoint.
So let me ask you this question.
Sure.
If you had to compare first, I agree with you. His peel is probably the weakest out of the tanks we've discussed so far, with one exception. If you compared him to Stitches, who do you think has the better peel?
No, I don't think Stitches has got the greatest peel either.
Right, but
outside of his ultimate,
that,
we
right?
talked that.
Right.
I think he needs his ultimate.
His ultimate.
Yeah,
but
the hook's not the greatest. I think single target peel isn't that as useful as having some sort of like area of effect
a group peel. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. And I agree. His peel is not the strongest. 100% not the strongest. But that brings me into another person who has no peel, and yet we have seen solo tank and definitely the tank out of the two warriors in a match, and that's Tyrael. 100%. His only peel, if you will, is at level 16, having Holy Ground. And is that really a peel? It could be used as a peel. It's more often than not used as I'm going to lock you in with us so I can kill you and your friends can't save you. Or Judgment, which we see more out of China and Korea. So how, Tyrael has a great engage. He can mobile ward because he can use his man, why am I going blank on his Q? Throw his Q sword. Yeah, he can use his Eldruin to check the bush. He can use his sword to check the bush, or he can drop his sword where he is, walk into the bush, and then pour out if in danger, right? He's not really a good damage sponge, though, when his shield is down. So Tyrael's on that bubble, right, where he can solo tank. Do you want to solo tank? Depends on your comp. Works well in a like, if you get a dual support Tyrael with like two super strong, like a Greymane.
Yeah,
Thank you, Tetcher.
I feel like Tyrael, one of the big reasons that he's useful, he's a very highly mobile tank, right? So he can keep up with other divers, whereas a lot of these tanks that we're looking at have problems doing that too.
Right. Well, and if we only talk about team fight tanking, he's on the weaker side. But if you look at all the other things he brings with him, dude, Sanctification can change a fight in a heartbeat, right?
The ultimate form of peel.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, okay, well, how do we, where do you classify that?
That's
right?
why we got all these asterisks, right? And that's why it makes it difficult. These guys have more
right.
situational bits, right? Like Tyrael is like the typical dive tank, right? Because he's got the Sanctification, he potentially the Judgment. If you want to go that route, he can port himself around with the sword and everything too, and give everyone attack, or so not attack speed, but speed boost through his E. So
right. All right. Arthas is another good example. Arthas we see picked all the time. In fact, I'm looking out at pick rates right now, and he's one of the more popular warriors that get picked. But what's interesting is he's not classified as a tank by hot slugs. But I've seen him solo tank. I don't think it's the right way to play him, but I have 100% seen him be solo tanked. So, he's another good example of where he's survivable. He sort of has an engage if you consider his root and engage. It's not as good as the other engages we've discussed, but he kind of has an engage. He can mobile ward. He can act as a mobile ward in that hopefully he doesn't die when he face checks, because he doesn't have an escape, right? Arthas' biggest problem, and Tetra mentioned this probably 9 minutes ago in chat, is that he has no way to, like, there is no movement ability with him. He walks in slow and he walks out slow, and that's all you're gonna get, right? But he can sustain, and he can sustain for a long time.
Those ghouls keep him alive
Well,
forever.
like-
What, Liquid? You're saying you don't take Death's Advance at 20 and move really fast?
No, dude, no. But you know what? Another good point, like Arthur's just, or like Tetra just pointed out, he counters so much stuff that like everybody plays him, and it makes sense. But if we're talking strictly around the criteria, he doesn't meet a lot of the criteria. So again, you have another asterisk where you say, okay, he doesn't meet all of these criteria that Cavalier Guest set out a year ago. And I think that's the point I wanted to get to tonight. Like Cavalier Guest post a year ago was great, but the entire, like, not the meta so much as how we play the game has shifted in the last year into more, all right, there are a couple of ways to play this game, and if you're going to go divey, we're going to go Arthas so that we can kill you when you dive. But if you're not going to go divey, maybe we're going to go divey. So we're going to bring a Tyrael along, and we're going to bring a Greymane along, and a Vala along, or a Illidan, or, well, you wouldn't do Greymane Illidan, but you know what I mean. Like you're going to bring really divey characters, and you're going to dive in, you're going to try and blow them up. Like there's a lot of different ways to play now that, like, the game is developing in a specific way that just wasn't there a year ago, right? So Arthas, again, definitely has his place in tanking, but does he meet the 4 criteria that Cavalier Guest set up a year ago? Not really, but that's okay.
But also, just to defend Cavalier Guests a little bit too, you can augment some of their weaknesses by either taking a tank that has the beneficial bits where they're lacking, or you can even take something like a Medivh can suddenly give him an escape, right? Or a Lucio can give him move speed that he's so sorely lacking. You can pick characters to augment other characters to make up for their deficiencies, I guess is what I'm getting at. And maybe Arthas might not be the best solo tank, but if you take him with another tank that can maybe fulfill the engage portion, like you take him with the Tyrael, you take him with an ETC as well, they can get that, better engage, and suddenly it works better. LiQuiD, what the hell is going on? Why are you laughing so hard?
I'm all right. I am a fanboy of HGC. You know that. And like Tetra's watching us and chatting in chat right now, and I'm like, it's like, don't be sorry, dude. I'm fanboying a little bit, and I'm trying not to. I'm trying to focus on the topic at hand. All right, that's all.
For those who are just listening, LiQuiD's getting all sorts of shades of red, and he was giggling up a storm, and it was being extraordinarily distracting trying to keep my train of thought. But I had to figure out what was
man.
up. No,
I'm sorry.
never any need to apologize.
You know how I am, right? Like I consume all of HGC, so I see Tetra all the time, and it's just like it's. I feel like we've made it, boys.
He took his glasses off. Oh, LiQuiD's lost it. So, Mystic, why don't we go on to the next one with you, Varian? What do you think about Varian as a tank? Because we do see him as a tank, a solo tank in many situations too. Where is he looking and shaping up in terms of Cavalier Guests, say, framework for what necessitates a tank?
Well, I'd say before 10, he is completely awful in almost every single category.
Which is one
Except
of the problems.
For maybe engage. I mean, his charge plus his Q would count as an engage before 10, but I don't know. It's pretty iffy. After 10, though, he's pretty good. He's a really good damage sponge because with his protect, his shield wall, right, he can take any skill shot and just eat it up for free. Well, almost free. Mobile ward, he's pretty good for that because he can get himself into a number of sticky situations and just live because of his protect. His peel, I'd say his peel's all right. If it's just one diver, it's pretty good because his taunt, right, it stops one target for 1.25 seconds, and then that gives your team time to either blow it up or retreat or something like that. However, 2 divers, like I said, kind of iffy.
Well,
his engage.
I want to I just want to throw something out there. He also has 2 slows, right? So you can potentially stop 3 targets with charge, a lion's maw, and a taunt, right? Difficult, but potentially possible.
Yeah. And then his engage, I'd say it's all right. Oh, I guess he's pretty good engage. He goes in there, he taunts the target, and if any follow-up comes back onto him, he presses protect. So after 10, he becomes pretty good in almost every single category, except for like multi-target peel, I'd like to say.
And that's the big asterisk for him is pre-10, you're not a tank at all, bud. So if you started off the way he was at 10, he'd be a great tank, right? But you can lose a game pre-10.
7-ish, he's okay, because at that point you have 3 protect talents, right? Because everybody runs dub taunt. Like, that's the build, right? So if you think about it from that point of view, post 7, you have enough protect talents that you can pseudo tank. You're in like the 30 to 40 Diablo Soul area at level 7, and then you're at like 60 once you get taunt at 10. So or even almost 100, right? Like, I just throwing that out there. Like, I agree with everything Mystic said, and he's definitely an asterisk. But post 7 it becomes easier, and then post 10 it becomes even easier for him to tank.
How about the next boy on the list? The antithesis of
So I
Varian.
wanted these together specifically for this reason. Because the one thing that I still disagree with people on is, and I'm going to totally go blank on the name of this talent, which is silly because I play it all the time, so I'm going to look it up real quick. Warlord's Challenge is like taunt on steroids. So I struggle with why people prefer. I mean, I understand why people prefer Decimate, and I get why people use Decimate, but I love Warlord's Challenge specifically because it's like the peel issue you had with Varian is not around with Garrosh. Garrosh has a completely different issue, and in that I don't feel like the amount of armor he gets per where his health is this goes into the same thing disagreement Mystic and I have all the time. I feel like the amount of armor they give him for the amount of hit points he's reduced is not like equitable, and I feel like it needs to be higher for him to fill that role. If you don't want him to, if Blizzard doesn't want him to play solo tank, 100% he's fine. Don't change him at all. If you want him to fill the solo tank role, you got to tweak something. Something's got to change there in the HP armor area for him. But he's got a lot of peel. He's definitely got the peel going for him. But he can't damage sponge. Not reliably.
And that's a bit of an issue, right? And I feel like he suffers from the Arthas Varian Artanis problem that he can trundle in, but trundling out doesn't necessarily save lives. Whereas jumping out or sliding out can definitely help that disengage.
The nice thing about him is you don't necessarily have to trundle in. You can pull them to you with a well-aimed Q. But yeah, he definitely he feels his walk speed is the same, but he feels slower because the way like and it's like, oh my god,
giant
like,
Manaroth tusks on his shoulders.
Yes,
I don't understand.
It just feels slower.
I can see from like an artistic standpoint why I like to put that stuff on, but really all these characters bring in things that are just so cumbersome in battle. Like, why do you need these giant tusks on your shoulders? I mean, or some of the armor they have too? Like, how can you move around? Like Valera stuff? What? Come on.
Just show dominance.
You know what my answer to that is? That's how we got the Tychus bikini, buddy.
See, now that's just practical. It's nice and light. It's breezy, good venting.
Good venting.
Yeah. Whereas you look at like even Valera, like she's supposed to be a rogue. Like she's got all these like things all the, and spikes things, and like plates. It's like that cannot be quiet.
I never like my rogue in WoW is like not like that. It's all like straight up leather armor, and the only thing cool is I have these metal shoulder plates that have like little claws that come out of them every once in a while that are like mystical type things. But no, I don't have it. I agree with you completely. It's crazy. That's why I have the Valera armor I have, because it's more slimmed down and not quite as pokey things everywhere.
So the next tank on the list is one of my favorite tanks. There's a big star next to him, though. Who's this tank we're going to talk about next, LiQuiD? And why is there a big star next to his name?
All right, so Chen, I feel like Chen is a great tank. Chen only works if you don't have a lot of stuns on the other team. So if you can get into a stun-free team, Chen is like god tier.
Or pushbacks too, right?
Right. So
stuns, pushbacks, silences.
So it's difficult to solo Chen, right? I'm not gonna lie. But his overall kit, absolutely says I can solo tank. But
the stars have to align with the opposite side's team gone.
Yeah, other comp has to
have to align.
Yes, 100%. Yes. So.
Yeah, but I mean, like going over the list, he's got like a lot of stuff going for him. He's got amazing engage. He can peel with his keg, and he can also flip over someone and body block him too if they're behind him. And mobile warding as well. Like, he can tank a lot of damage. Maybe he can't flip out if he runs into a gank bush, but still, and he can soak that damage like nobody's business with those shields as long as he's not interrupted. And that's the big problem, though, is if he does get interrupted, he doesn't have his brew, he can't do a lot of these things, he can't peel, he can't engage. They've changed a little bit with him recently where he starts drinking, gets initially a quick burst of brew, which has been a really nice change. But yeah, if he can't drink his brew, he's having some problems.
Right, exactly. So, but overall, his kit is great. It screams, this dude can solo tank. He can't because he doesn't have, it's too easy to stop him.
Yeah. And another big asterisk as well next to our next tank, Cho.
Cho'Gall. So Cho'Gall can...
Team League OP, by the way.
Yes. Cho'Gall is in an interesting position. He can 100% solo tank. But the rest of the team, big old asterisk, the rest of the team has to work with it. 100% of the rest of the team has to work with it. It's very comp dependent and
easily countered too.
Yeah, and that was what I was gonna say, and easily countered. So you almost have to who saves their tank for their 4-5 pick? Nobody does that, right?
Well, if you pick Ariel number 3,
right? But then you almost have to go I don't know. You know what? Was one comp I saw work really well was Task first pick, Vala Ariel. How they got that 2-3, I have no idea how that was even let happen. And then Cho'Gall 4-5, right? That comp 100% works, but are you really gonna get that comp? And then you have to hope that they don't have, Tychus. Tychus isn't as big of a threat now, but Tychus, Malthael, Karazim, there's so many things. Leoric.
Cavalier Guest is to be believed. Malthael does not counter Cho'Gall.
Yeah, that's a good point. No, that's a good point. He does, but he does a lot of damage to the group, and I still think he's strong against that comp.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's a good point.
And I think you need a high skill cap to be able to get away from the Malthael as a Cho'Gall as well. Okay, so we've got a list of not tanks here. So we've got D.Va, Zarya, Rexxar, Leoric, Artanis, and Sonya. Now, before I gotta say, there's the asterisks because we got a lot of asterisks to stay.
Yes.
This is LiQuid's list.
Yes.
This isn't Mystic's list. Mystic, do you agree with this list that LiQuid's put out here?
Well,
be careful what you say.
Not tanks. Yeah, Sonya, I agree. Artanis, as much as I would like for him to be main tank, I agree.
Dude, right? I wish he was. 100% I wish he was. He's so much fun to play.
Yeah, Rexxar, yep, Leoric, Zarya. Now, D.Va, I'd like to say she's on the edge, but I think she falls slightly short as to not tank.
So, D.Va and Zarya just barely miss it. I've seen Zarya solo tank before. It can be done. It's weird. It is one of the strangest things to ever watch. And usually you see it with another, so a Zarya Sonya, right? And this is a concept we talked about not too long ago on the Nexus Trolls, and we've talked about it off and on just in general, right? If you are we're getting to a point where you don't necessarily need a real tank if you have enough heals. So you could almost go D.Va Sonya or Sonya Leoric, or there's room for some double bruiser warriors with good heals to play. It's not quite there, but I feel like we're slowly drifting that direction with the game is in general. Now, part of that is because we haven't gotten a true solo warrior in a year and a half now. Garrosh is just not quite there.
Blizzard is just sitting there but we just released Garrosh.
Right? And it's no, dude. And he's marked. Tetra had it. Tetra says it perfect. Blizzard marks him as a solo tank, but he's literally the perfect double tank. That statement right there is Garrosh, right? So Blizzard has him marked as a solo tank and continues to say, no, Garrosh is a solo tank. But if you compare Garrosh to Johanna, even though Johanna is not the best right now, you can see the difference between a true solo tank and where Garrosh is. But I think we're slowly getting to the point where it's going to be like double bruiser, double support is a thing. We're not there yet, but I feel like we're inching that way. Or maybe not call them bruisers, right? But like Diva Dahaka could work. It would be weird, but it could work. You know what I mean? So like there's room for like the ADRDs of the world to come up with something completely weird that just blows our mind. And we're like, how is that a thing? How did that work? But it works, right? Yeah. It's possible.
Yeah, I think
it reminds me of a story for like way back when we were just beginning to play Chair League with Shiz and them. Yep. And I remember one time we had Leoric solo tank, and I was like, but he's not really a tank. He's more of a bruiser. And it went fairly poorly because the only like quote unquote peel that Leoric has is like in tune if you land it like super good.
Right.
Or the Q, which is okay, it's a slow, but yeah.
It is slow.
Yeah, but it's hard though. It's hard.
But again, I think in double tank situations, a lot of these people obviously are very viable.
Yes.
And you can make up for, say, like, okay, well, maybe Leoric doesn't have great peels. He can pick one of the other ones that does have a great peel, right? And you can mix and match to kind of fulfill all of the needs of the team, whatever those needs happen to be. Okay, so great discussion about tanks. We had to throw this together pretty quickly today because there was no patch notes, no hero reveals and such, but I think we did a pretty good job. If you have any questions or comments about any of the stuff we talked about today, feel free to email us at TheNexusTrolls@trolls.gg. So we had an email today. So here's the email bumper.
Hello, is this the Nexus Trolls? You guys are hilarious.
And one of these days I won't have to prompt it by saying, here's the bumper. But that's just me stalling because I can never find my soundboard in time to get it to be there perfectly smoothly.
Stream Deck.
So our email that we got this week may actually be Giggly Schmack. I'm not positive because in the email they used the proper name, just Troy C, and it's likely Giggly Schmack because of what he says here. Hey TNT, I just want to give you guys credit for inspiring me to get into chair league casting. I'm hoping to cast my first match on Tuesday night, which happened to be Giggly Schmack's night, so I'm assuming this is Giggly Schmack. Also, I may have a suggestion for Dr. Daz's science lab. This feels like a silly or trivial question, but maybe it's not. To put it very simply, do minions scale, and if so, to what extent? I'm asking because a friend and I have done 1v1 slap fights, I hope they're Abathurs, between heroes in custom games. I really hope those are Abathur slap fights. During these games, we would have our heroes dueling in the middle of a 2-lane map while the minions beat each other to death. And I got the impression that whichever player was winning the duels was also having their minions last longer than the other players. This is because levels also affect minions. Like if left entirely alone, will level 4 minion wave defeat a level 3 minion wave? And if so, why? Do all minion stats improve at 4% per level heroes, or is it just HP or attack power, etc., etc.? If this is already common knowledge and I've just happened to be out of the loop, please let me know via email. But if this hasn't been tested before, I think it could make for a great lab segment. Thanks for all the great content. Cheers, Troy. So, Troy, we took this to heart and we've created a Dr. Daz's science lab for this. Welcome to Dr. Daz's science lab. So I put this in our little Discord channel. And Mystic kind of burst my bubble being like, they definitely scale. I was like, okay, Mystic, you're kind of ruining the thought experiment here. Because not only was he asking if they scale, he was also asking how they scale. Now, I'm going to preface this, as I preface all my Dr. Dash Science Labs, saying, you know, I might spend maybe an hour or two quickly doing these things together, but they're not, like, by any stretch, completely robust science lab experiments like you see some Redditors spend obviously many, many hours breaking down stats and such too. This might be something you can just look in the logs file and pull out the exact numbers, but you know what? I wanted to do this as a bit of a thought exercise. So I went into try mode. And unlike other times when I've done Dr. Daz's science labs, I found the perfect character to do this right away. What I wanted to do is I wanted to take a look at minions and see how easy it was to burn them down at different levels. In try mode, you can press the C button, you can see what your attack damage is per attack, and you can count the number of auto attacks it takes to kill a minion. Obviously, this lends to a bit of a resolution issue. There's a little bit of error because if you have an auto attack go off on a character, the size of their auto attack depends on like kind of the margin of error, because they might have 1 hit point left. They might have 84 if your attack is 85. They die to that no matter what. So there is a little bit of error involved. But still, I think considering who I picked and the framework for this, I think it worked out reasonably well. I picked Tracer. I picked Tracer for a few reasons. Tracer has a very low auto attack damage, so that error will be lower. She's got high attack speed, which could make it very difficult to count the attacks. But luckily, she's got a little indicator saying how many bullets she's got left in her holster, so you can just see that and count how many are left when you're done. And you can tell, obviously, every time she reloads, it's another 10. So I went into try mode, and I found it very difficult at first to count the bullet shots, because you'd start attacking a minion, you get the kill off, but then she'd immediately use the rest of her bullets in her clip on another hero. So I started being like, hey, how many just popped off of her after like that before it died on the minion? But that wasn't working very well. So I figured out what the best way to do is actually wait till the minion waves engage. What I did is I did this on the final ranged minions, so that I knew they weren't getting aggroed by the other minion wave. You go just loop around and start attacking on the edge of your auto attack range. So as soon as you're done killing that minion, you stop auto attacking. So you can get a good count on the number of auto attacks that Tracer got off on the minion. So I checked the health total, or how many hits it took to kill a ranged minion from level 1 through level 30, did each level going through it, and just multiplied the number of hits by the number of damage, and that was approximate amount of health. I did minimum and maximum ranges because, like I said before, you could have 1 hit point left, and you have 83 left if you've got 84 damage, and it's going to kill that minion. So there was that kind of floating error between it, but I did take that into account. So that error, by the way, is about 5 to 10%. Of the minion's health, and about 1. So the scaling that I determined, and it was actually interesting. I assumed it was going to be a pretty steady scaling across the board, but what it looks like, and again, this could be wrong, feel free to email me, let me know, and I'm sure a lot of you probably will. The scaling ended up being about 1.1 to 1.2% scaling from levels 1 through 20. It may pick up a little bit because I got closer to 1.2 between levels 10 and 20, and about 1.1 between 1 and 10. I'm attributing that to error. But then after 20, it seemed to double. It was about 2.6% scaling from 20 to 30. Now, this makes sense in a lot of ways, and this is just pure health scaling, by the way, that we're talking about at this point, because as we all know, it's a lot easier to clear minion waves the longer later in the game you get, so heroes do scale faster than minions, significantly so. Now, Troy also asked about damage, so I figured a really easy way to do this was to see, okay, if health and damage scale equally, then because we already know that health scales, minion waves hitting in one lane are always going to clear each other about the same amount of time if the damage and the health scales proportionally together. And turns out that was the case. So level 1 and versus level 30, the minion waves cleared each other in the same amount of time. So it appears that attack damage does scale approximately the same as health. And again, it's that kind of 1 to 2% depending on where you are in the game. The interesting thing I found is that they scale faster later game. Okay, so that is Dr. Daz's Science Lab for the week. Thank you, Troy, for your question. Do you guys have any follow-up questions for me before we roll into Mystic's Shakedown?
Nah, I think you covered it really well.
So, Mystic, thanks for trying to spoil it in Discord prior to it. Did you learn anything here?
Well,
you could
I
say
learned that.
He's like, no, not really.
I mean, I learned a couple things. One, that, there's always 2 ways to look at something, and 2, that I got to see your thought process through all your experiments here.
Yes, I found it pretty interesting that the scaling changes throughout. And I mean, obviously, there's probably hard numbers that some people probably figured out in the past. I couldn't find anything recent on Reddit, which is why we decided to do this as Dr. Daz's Science Lab.
Actually, that's the thing I appreciate most out of Dr. Daz's Science Lab is not necessarily the result, but your process of the journey to get to said result.
And I know I could have just said right off the bat, this is the
Right.
scaling numbers. But hey, might as well take you through the whole thought process, the whole journey, because it was quite the journey late last night. Okay, so that leaves us with our final segment, Mystic Shakedown.
Mystic, I require service of you. I come to you as a friend. asking you to shake down this situation for me.
Hey, Mystic, take it away.
All right, so this topic for the week is how to make a comeback. And we all know the feeling, I'm sure, of you're losing, you're down a couple of levels, and now you're thinking, hey, maybe I should just AFK out of this game, and Blizzard's system may or may not report me here. But this is something you shouldn't do. Comebacks are very, very possible, and here's some tips on how to do them. So when you're down a couple of levels, you're not down and out. The levels mean talent differences, right? However, there are a couple of levels between talents. So it's totally possible to get to an even talent tier, and that's the time that you want to take the fights. That's when your stats may not be entirely even, however, your talents are, and those are the bigger things. All right, second point. If you have a lot of late game heroes like Malthael, Nazebo, or even like Thrall, heroes with a lot of quests, and you power spike like really late in the game, just try to keep close in levels. You don't need to be, well, I mean, you kind of want to be ahead of them, but as long as you keep close in levels and then your late game kicks in, you're going to feel that, and you're going to just totally steamroll a lot of the teams if you have a lot of late game heroes and they just picked a bunch of, and their heroes are mainly early mid game, right? Third thing, if they are really high in levels, like let's just say you're 2 levels down, maybe even 3 levels down, and you really want to fight, get a bunch of your allies and just say, here, this guy, he's gonna die. And make sure he's like pretty well enough alone, so it's kind of like the, hey, there's like 30 of us, he's only 1 guy, we can take him. And as long as you get the kill, how the EXP scaling in this game works is, if they're like much higher level than you and you get the kill, but they get a return kill, they get a lot less EXP for killing you than you do them. So that kill is usually worth it. As long as, that doesn't snowball into like you guys lost, a couple keeps off of that and then the objective. Next thing is get picks off of heroes, which kind of stems from the last one. Heroes that are alone or maybe like party brush, you can pick them off, and then suddenly it's a 4v5, and then maybe that 4v5 is enough to even out like the level difference there. So even if they're a couple levels higher, you guys have a hero up on them. So always look for those advantages. And then lastly, get big value off of your heroics or basic abilities. What this means is like a 5-man ETC or like a wombo combo like VP into APOC into like Jaina Frostring. That's a pretty old one. It's old but gold.
Love that.
Yeah, if you get huge value off of your heroic abilities and land, like hitting everybody with them, that can also even out the level difference and the talent differences.
So
if you have no other option.
So what's the worst thing you could do when you're down levels and facing that situation where you've got to somehow claw the comeback back? What's the worst thing you can do? Because people often get antsy and impatient. They feel like they need to do something. What's the worst thing that can be done here, Mystic?
If you're, let's just say it's you're level 10, they're level 13 or 14. That's pretty big level advantage for them. Either get picks off or take like calculated risks where this may end badly, however the payoff is huge. For example, you 5-man death brush in like near an objective on a let's just say Dragonshire, and so they're like, oh yeah, we're like 4 levels up. They split, they go 1 top, like 2 mid or something, and then 2 are coming bottom to claim the shrine because they're like, yeah, we can just kill anybody that's down here. However, if all 5 of you are in the brush and they face check it, that's 2 kills, right? And then you also take that shrine, and if the rest 3 try to fight you as well, then it's 5v3. So, stuff like that. You gotta, and the biggest downplay for that would be like, hey, you're not soaking some of the lanes. and let's just say they come down with 5 and you see that, well, then you back away, right? You've lost a little bit of soak, but it wasn't like a huge loss, and then you back away.
You're talking about high risk, like calculated risks. One thing I often see is when it seems like a desperate situation, I was like, well, let's try for boss and see what happens. Is that something that you
that's
advise
always
against?
bad.
Well, if you're
Don't
down
do
4
that.
levels and you're up against
No.
it.
The gank bush is the best way to. We my favorite game that I always go back to, and Mystic remembers this. We were down a couple of levels. We had just lost an immortal on BOE, and instead of engaging or looking for a pickoff, Shiz is like, everybody go to this bush right now. So we all run to this bush. We went the long way around, and the rest of the team's following the immortal in, and he's like, look, we're probably going to lose a keep, but we're going to wipe them right here. Mystic's like, there's no, like, everybody's like, there's no way we're doing this. Mystic's like, can we go? Can we go? Can we? And she's like, no, you got to wait. You got to wait. You got to wait. They got all the way up. The gate was down. The immortal was pushing in, and she's like, now. And we jumped on these 5 from behind, and we wiped them so hard and so fast that their warrior literally checked every bush for the rest of the game.
Look,
should've been
in my
done in the first
defense, I just didn't want to lose the keep
I know.
before we pulled the trigger.
I know, man. I know you had a reason behind it, but like the gank push is the best. Like if you can set up, like your best 2 options are, one, like Mystic said, get that single point pick off, and like Decro in chat said, when 5 sharks find a jet in a brick alley, the 5 sharks leave alone. Like that's the kind of situation you're looking for, right? One dude totally isolated, 5 people jump on him and bounce and just crush him. Now one of 2 things is happening. They're losing soak from that lane that one guy was covering, and you have a 5 versus 4, or they just you start catching up on XP. You look for another solo player, set up a gank push. Like the gank push is 100% my favorite way to get back into a game, if you can do it.
And as Mystic's story there, and LiQuiD's story, I guess, because you guys were both involved in that, just goes to show too, patience is very important too, and like waiting for that opportunity, and I guess not running in, staggering death timers if you're on the losing end of it. It's nothing worse than you can do than getting down in terms of numbers when you're on the losing end.
And that, I think, is the worst thing you can do when you're on that losing end. Stagger your death timers, since you mentioned it. Like 100, like then you never get a chance to get back in the game because you always have someone dead. So,
and morbid note to end the show on, but we're going to do it nevertheless. So thank you all for listening to the Nexus Trolls, a Heroes of the Storm podcast, which we stream live on this Twitch channel, twitch.tv/TrollsGG, every week on Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. LiQuiD, where can people find you on this fabulous thing we call the internet?
The fabulous thing we call the internet. So the easiest place to find me is actually on Twitter, at LiQuiDGG, LiQiuDGG. I have been swamped at work, so I have not had time to cast games, although I did cast you guys last week, Daz, on my Twitch channel, which is also LiQuiDGG. But Twitter is the place to go. I tweet when I'm going live, whether it's with this show, whether it's esports news that we discovered through Troll and HGC, whatever it happens to be, that is the best place.
And you have to do another podcast that's going to be starting very shortly, too, don't you?
I do. Troll and HGC starts at 9:30. Bacon is in today. Bags is actually out. He got great seats to Mets Yankees, and he happens to be a Mets fan, and his girl is a Yankees fan, and they go every time they get good seats. So they're there right now. So me and Bacon are going to cover Eastern Clash. And I have news. I am managing a team again.
Oh, sweet.
So I have started managing a team called TQ. They're currently number 6 in the NA Open Division.
Oh, awesome. So, and 6 is the magic number, too, to get into the Crucible, right? The tournament
8.
for it?
8. Top 8.
Well,
so
either way, they're there. They're there. So good luck on your new managing venture, LiQuiD.
Thank you.
So Mystic, how's that Twitter account going, sir?
Oh, it's going.
19 followers, 19 tweets.
19 tweets. There's something to be said there.
Yeah. 1 tweet a week. If you want to follow Mystic, you can do so at Mystic Shroud on Twitter. And if you're looking for me, you can find me at DazHots. So thanks to all our Patreon supporters. If you like the show and you're looking for a way to support us, you can do so over at patreon.com/TrollsGG. As LiQuiD said off the top of the show, every penny we get from now until, close to BlizzCon, will be put on to swag to give out to you guys at BlizzCon. We're going to be looking to get t-shirts, some pinhole sunglasses are pretty cool, all branded with Trolls GG stuff. So you can also subscribe to our show on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, wherever you find your podcasts online. And if you're looking for a way to support us non-financially, you can just leave us 5-star reviews there, because those really help a ton, guys. And finally, you can visit our website at trolls.gg/TheNexusTrolls to watch us in past shows, along with past video streams, which can also be found on our YouTube channel. For announcements about the show and general Heroes of the Storm news, follow us on Twitter at TheNexusTrolls. If you want to hang out with us and the Trolls community in-game, you can /join TrollsGG or join our Discord channel over at trolls.gg/Discord. Finally, if you need to get in touch with us, the best way is by email at TheNexusTrolls@TrollsGG. Thanks everybody for listening. Have a great week.
TNT.